Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at Tkinter Scrollbars, and we've got some great code examples and explanations from plus2net.com. We're really going to help you get the most out of that material.
It's funny how something as simple as a scroll bar can be so important for, making a user interface that's actually enjoyable to use.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Imagine trying to use like a giant spreadsheet without scroll bars.
Ugh, don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, total nightmare.
So let's jump into the basics here. You've got these code examples that use Tkinter, and that's a Python library, as I'm sure you know, for building graphical user interfaces. And it's really focused on adding scroll bars to things like your list boxes or text boxes, even tree views.
Yeah, I was really struck by how simple that basic code is. You just create that scroll bar widget and then you link it to whatever element you want to be scrollable. And you use those, scroll command and command options. But I got to admit, I'm still a little fuzzy on exactly how those work together.
Oh yeah, that's a great point to dig into. What's really cool about those two options is that they create this two-way communication between your scroll bar and the element that can be scrolled. So like when you move the scroll bar, the AI scroll command, that tells the element, let's say it's a list box, what part of the content it should be showing.
Okay.
And then, if you click on an item in that list box, but it's not currently visible, then that command option will tell the scroll bar, hey, you need to adjust your position.
Gotcha. So they're constantly talking back and forth, keeping everything in sync.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the source material also gets into using grid layouts to position those scroll bars. Did you find those examples helpful at all?
Oh, definitely. The one with the list box of countries, that really clicked for me. It shows how you can put that scroll bar right next to the list box using the grid.
Right.
So it's super clear, how to scroll through that list.
And what I really like is that it shows, even with a simple grid layout, you have so much control over where the scroll bar is and what it looks like. You can use the sticky option to make sure that the scroll bar stretches all the way to match the height of whatever it's controlling, which just makes for a really clean look.
Yeah, it's all about those little details that make a big difference in how easy something is to use.
Absolutely. And speaking of details, the source also mentions some really neat ways you can customize those scroll bars. Did you see the part about changing the cursor shape when you hover over it?
Oh, yeah, that's a nice touch.
Yeah.
Like making the cursor turn into a little hand.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of gives the user that subtle hint that, hey, you can interact with this thing.
Exactly. Those little hints can go a long way in making the whole thing feel a lot more intuitive. And, they even show how to do that with a text box, which is really handy when you're working with a ton of text.
Yeah, that example with the text box full of numbers, that was super clear. They just add that vertical scroll bar and you can see how it lets you move through all that text. It's such a simple thing, but it makes a huge difference in how easy that text box is to use.
For sure. And it's a good reminder that scroll bars aren't just for, fancy widgets or anything. They're important for any element that might have more information than you can see at once.
Right. And that brings us to that part where they talk about using scroll bars with tree views. And that seems especially important if you're working with big data sets, right?
Absolutely. Tree views are great for showing that hierarchical data.
Yeah.
But they can get really overwhelming really fast if you have a lot of information. I mean, imagine trying to analyze a huge data set, but you can't scroll through the rows and columns.
Oh, man. Yeah.
No, thank you.
That would be a huge pain.
So scroll bars are absolutely crucial for making those tree views usable with real-world data.
Totally.
And actually, they hinted that they have a whole other article that's specifically about adding scroll bars to tree views.
Oh, wow.
When you're displaying data from a MySQL database, that sounds like it could be a whole other deep dive in itself.
It really does. We might have to check that out sometime. But for now, I think we've got a really good grasp on the basics just from this source. We've seen how to add scroll bars to list boxes and text boxes. We've talked about why they're important for tree views.
Yeah.
And we even went a little bit beyond just describing the code.
Right.
We talked about how those key options actually work behind the scenes. And, we even started thinking about the design choices involved in using scroll bars effectively.
Exactly. It's not just about the how, it's also about the why.
Exactly.
Now, there's one more thing I want to touch on before I move on to the next part of our deep dive. Scroll bar customization.
Okay.
We talked about changing the cursor, but there's a whole world of possibilities beyond that.
Ew, like what? I'm always excited to tweak the look and feel of my GUIs. I love that stuff.
Well, imagine being able to change the color of the scroll bar, to match the theme of your application. Or even adding like a subtle background image
Ooh, okay.
to give it a unique texture.
Okay, now you're talking. I'm already picturing like a scroll bar with a nice wood grain texture for like a vintage themed text editor or something.
Oh, and I love that.
The possibilities are kind of endless.
Right. And it's not just about looks either. You can also fine-tune how they actually work.
Yeah.
Like you can adjust the scrolling speed, how sensitive they are to your mouse wheel, and even how the scroll bar reacts to different kinds of input.
Oh, cool. So you can make it scroll nice and smooth.
Exactly.
Or make it jump a big amount with every click, depending on what makes sense for your application.
Exactly. And mastering these customization options is really the key to making a really polished and user-friendly experience. It's almost like you have a secret language to communicate your design vision to the scroll bar.
I love that analogy.
So in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to actually put all this knowledge to the test. We're going to tackle a real-world situation where we have to use scroll bars in a Tkinter app.
Awesome.